we'd like to thank our show sponsor, Optio. Optio is a Google Ads management tool and much more. If you run one Google Ads account or 100, Optio will save you time and enhance your ad management skills. Smart, powerful, and built to make life easier, it will automate routine Google Ads tasks and alert you automatically to trends and even make automatic recommendations. You can then spend more time on high-level strategy and creative work. We use Optio in our agency to make us more efficient and effective. Go to optio.com/click and convert to claim your 6-week free trial. That's optio.com/click and convert to claim your 6-week free trial.
This is the Click and Convert podcast, bringing you the latest marketing techniques used on the world's leading online platforms, including Google, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Here's your host from online marketing agency Clarkson James. It's Sean Clark.
Hi, and welcome to the Click and Convert podcast. I'm Sean, and it's great to have you all back again. We're nearing that magic hour. We've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday just around the corner, and if you haven't already planned your marketing for that, come on, boys and girls, it's getting late in the day. You should have been thinking about that back in the summer. But anyway, there's still time to take advantage, and today's guest may have some awesome tips for you as well. So today's guest is Adam Lundquist, Harvard-educated agency owner. See, I don't get to say Harvard a lot, not on this show anyway, and former radio shock jock. We'll talk a bit about that one in a minute. From Santa Barbara Radio. When Adam published one of his interviews on a newly formed platform back in the day called YouTube, it became one of the first viral videos, sparking his initial interest in the power of the internet as well as internet marketing. Adam has been featured on traditional media like MTV, VH1 and The Best Damn Sports Show. He's taken his knowledge of traditional media, translated it successfully into new media as a featured author in Search Engine Journal, PPC Hero and Wordstream, amongst other publications online. His company, Nerds Do It Better, great name, consistently delivers paid search campaigns utilising advanced statistical analysis developed at Harvard. With this method, Adam and his team are able to remove inefficiencies in marketing and generate more customers on a consistent basis in a cost-effective way, and we are going to dig in and find out how. So welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks. That intro makes it sound really interesting. I'd love to listen to this guy.
Well, we hope we can extract enough interesting information out of you. To start with, we can't hide from it. Let's get into the radio bit. How do you go from Harvard to radio shock jock across to YouTube?
Sure, it's actually the reverse order. It was a radio shock jock first. So I grew up in Long Island, in New York. I don't know if you guys know about New York over here. Yep. I'm actually over here myself right now. I live in South Kensington, so I know I'm well aware of all this. But then at 10, I moved to Boston, and in Boston, there's kind of like two big things when you grow up. There's kind of sports and there's radio. So it's not like a big, not like big movie stars or TV stars or anything. Those were always the two big things growing up. And I always kind of wanted to be the next Howard Stern. I don't know, does he translate over here? Is he?
Yeah, well, I've heard of him. A lot of the online audience will have heard of him. The general public probably won't as much. But anyone into online marketing for any amount of time should have heard of Howard Stern.
Yeah, so he was kind of like a crazy radio DJ is the best way I would describe it. So that's what I wanted to do. When I moved to Santa Barbara, I started at the bottom, and eventually I got my own radio show. I was a co-host of a show. We did really well. We were always #1 rated, and I was kind of living my dream. It was great. I mean, Santa Barbara is a great little beach town, and it was just really fun. But around 2006, 2007-ish, the ad revenue for radio started dropping, and radio supported by ad revenue. And I saw this, and I kind of thought about, like, well, where's it going? So it wasn't like I got paid on the ad revenue, but my salary was paid, kind of based on how much people listened to it. Yeah, exactly. So I started thinking about it, and like it used to just be you could advertise on newspapers, and then you could advertise on billboards, and then you could advertise on NASCAR, and then you could advertise in all these places. And I started looking and seeing that actually advertising was going more and more online. And I was getting more and more interested online. Like I was always kind of an early adopter, but around 2006 or 2007, I started thinking about using online for promotion. And my manager of the radio station, one of the few independent ones, was very against it. He said the internet, it's never going to take off. It's not a good thing. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be stuck here in the silent film era. And I got lucky that the Los Angeles Clippers, which are a basketball team in the U.S., practiced at the City College for kind of like summer practice, I guess I would say. And I interviewed this guy named Sam Cassell, who kind of looks like an alien. And everyone always talked about him behind his back. They look like an alien. So basically, I asked him a bunch of questions about looking like an alien. Nothing too clever, to say the least. And I had this video, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to post it on YouTube, and it's going to go viral. And that's what happened. No, that's not what happened at all. So I posted on YouTube, and much like everyone thinks that everyone cares about what they're doing, no one cares. So I posted on YouTube, and then very few things happened. It maybe got 200 views or something. And I was like, well, my goal is to make this I don't even think it was called Go Viral at that time, but my goal was to get a lot of views on this. So I started emailing it to people, and then I started looking at what my subject line said. And then I started thinking about audiences and where this might make sense for audiences. And eventually I got enough momentum where it got picked up. It was on the Best Damn Sports Show. It's what was it? Sports Illustrated. It's number 7 viral video of all time. Right. And as one thing got picked up, it got picked up. And it really opened my eyes to the power of the internet versus the power of radio and traditional media, because I had done a radio show for 5 years or so. And this interview had been online for, maybe 3 months by the time it really started picking up. And it just opened up so many more doors and opportunities across the whole country. And it even put me on traditional radio, like back in Boston and a whole bunch of other places. And I started seeing that if you do things online, you can track them. And then you can even further along the lines optimize it. So I found certain emails got people to post it on their blogs at the time. And that was kind of my start of internet marketing. I did it for myself, and it was just totally by accident, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people coming into it nowadays miss that part of the journey, if you like, that actually building up a bit of authority behind yourself early on, almost ad hoc or by accident, can be so powerful a lot later down the line. The obvious one that comes to mind is Gary Vaynerchuk, of course, with Wine Library TV. It started out just doing wine tasting on YouTube, and he did it for quite some time before anyone even knew who he was. And then he turned into this mega superstar. But of course, he's put tons and tons of effort into these videos, one after the other in the background. Very much like yourself, you've built up this audience almost by accident in the background, and that gives you a real solid grounding to move forward. How did you then hop across to Harvard and get into this statistical analysis development that you did there?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, actually it'd be 10 years on the 12th, 10 years on the 13th. It was Friday 13th, and we were doing an episode of Things That'll Give You Bad Luck, and then we got fired. So
ironic.
Definitely unlucky. In a way, it was unlucky. In a way, it was also very lucky, because I've seen what happened to people who stayed in radio, and it's cool when you're like a mid-20-year-old guy to be out drinking every night and essentially getting paid in beer. It's much less cool when you're almost 40 and you want to have a real life. So they let me go, and I actually ended up moving to Romania with what is now my wife. And I just started thinking about what I wanted to do. So I went back to school, and then the deal is you don't have to be on campus to actually finish the degree. You only have to be on campus for the start, so you can do the actual thesis, because it's a master's degree. Yeah. I did my undergrad at University of California, Santa Barbara, so it wasn't an undergrad, it was a master's. And you don't need to be on campus for that, so we moved to San Diego, and partially on the strength of the Harvard, but really a lot also on the strength of having that viral video. And showing that it wasn't just all technical. I got a job at just a startup. There was maybe 4 people there. And maybe it was a little more. Maybe it was like 6. But we ended up becoming the second fastest growing private company in San Diego, and I was working like 1 million hours. And we took our biggest client was a cell phone company, or no, a cell phone case company, and we took them from about 20,000 a month in revenue to over 1 million a month in revenue. Wow. And that was where I started to see, yeah, it's awesome to have a lot of people think you're funny. I mean, that is great, but it's way more awesome when you can really make people a lot of money and scale. So a lot of it is about statistics. So a lot of my thinking around statistics is, have you ever read that book or seen the movie Moneyball?
Not heard of it, no. Moneyball.
All right. So it's a book by Michael Lewis, he's my favorite author. He also wrote The Big Short, and he usually writes about Wall Street. But he wrote a book about the Oakland Athletics, which is a Major League Baseball team, and how their front office hired this big nerd statistician, also out of Harvard actually, who noticed something called market inefficiencies. So people were overvaluing some things and undervaluing other things. Mm-hmm. So as an example, they were very much overvaluing batting average, which isn't exactly what it sounds like. It's more what they should have been valuing is on base percentage, which is how much time people get on base. So not to get too in the weeds, but they were valuing basically how many times someone had a hit versus how many times someone was on base. So it's much more helpful to actually get on base. So this realization allowed them, as a team with about seriously the fourth of the budget of the Yankees, to look at data in a different way and actually make the playoffs a bunch. And actually, I believe they beat the Yankees at one point. And then my favorite team out of Boston, the Red Sox, used this exact methodology to win the World Series. So I started looking at this in marketing and thinking, what's overvalued and what's undervalued? What is it that everyone's saying, can I get the most clicks? Can I get the most form fills? And yeah, maybe you can, but are you overvaluing that? Where should you be valuing your clicks and your conversions? And that's a lot of what I look at with the statistics. I use a lot of query language in Google Sheets. I don't know if you know about that. I'm just huge Google Sheets person. I run everything through it, including project management and whatnot. And I like to look at, so a couple of things that I think people don't look at enough. The most important is your profit-based business goals, right?
Yes.
So if you were just looking at digital marketing-based conversion goals rather than profit-based business goals, that is an inefficient optimization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're just getting a lot of leads, but they're poor quality, uninterested, unqualified leads. We mainly do lead gen, so some of this will apply to e-com, but mainly this will be lead generation. A lot of lawyers, a lot of doctors, that kind of thing. You're not really looking at the most important metrics, which are the business metrics, and even then, you're only kind of looking at the front end of the metrics. So in a lot of times, this isn't so much with lawyers, but this is if you have recurring customers, you might want to look at the lifetime value of a customer, right?
Yes.
So if you're just saying it's very cheap to get this whole group of people who download, yes, great. So you have a start possibly, but what you really want to be thinking about is what's the lifetime value of a customer, because it can make a huge difference. And I know your agency does e-com, so this is kind of like if you had a loss leader, right? Or just a very cheap, whatever, $5, 5-pound product. Yeah, that might get them in the door, but we know that once you have them as a customer, people are often repeating and buying more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a repeat purchase product, like you say, we have a client that sells dog food. It's a repeat purchase product. So you then have to work out how long does the average customer stay with you and how much do they spend, because that gives you much more movement in terms of how much you can spend to acquire that initial customer, instead of, the initial £2 or $3 for a pouch of dog food, where you could only afford to spend pennies on a click. All of a sudden, you're into the hundreds of dollars, where you can actually afford to spend a lot more if you really understand the lifetime value.
And that's why you'll see people so people who might be new to internet advertising, the same way when I was new to making the viral video, I was like, well, this is just going to be viral. It's just what's going to happen. People put something online well, I'm just going to get 1 million sales. It's just going to happen. But that's not going to happen. And that's not really a good strategy. And if you look at the big companies who really do well with internet marketing, such as Netflix, they don't even make you pay at first. Yeah, you get a free, whatever it is, 7-day trial or whatever it is. And Uber, I'm not saying they're the most ethical company, but they definitely do well. And I'm sure that I got hooked on it because I got like whatever it was, 3 free rides or something. And once someone makes a choice like that, they're likely to stay. It's I don't know if it's the same here, but it's like when you open a bank account in the U.S., you're pretty likely to stay with that bank.
Yeah. The turnaround time on I don't know actually what it is, but it must be fairly low, the churn on bank accounts, because, well, traditionally it's been hard to move. I mean, it's not so hard to move now, but even so, it's not the first thing you think about in the morning.
No. And a good way to do this, because I deal with this myself all the time, because it's not like you can literally pixel a human being or put a cookie in a human's head. So I think the best way to do this, the best way I found, is to use emails as a unique identifier, because people like I don't have a name I can shorten, but as an example, someone might be Tom and Thomas. Like they might put in differently when they make the purchase, and they might put in differently when they've initially filled out a form to get that initial consult or demo or whatever it is you're doing to drive it. Yeah. So I found emails to be the best way to do this. I use something called Zapier, which pulls from. I don't get a piece of any of these or anything. I always recommend. Sorry. Yeah, because people always ask me what I use, and I want to make this clear. Like I'm not an affiliate. I'm not an affiliate for anything, I don't think. Or if I am, they've never paid me. But I use Zapier and Google Sheets and Unbounce. Unbounce is a way to make landing pages. So like I said, we mainly do lead generation. Mm-hmm. That'll just pull in the email via Zapier to Google Sheets. And then once you have their email, you can track them across lifetime as long as you're able to watch the purchases.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those 3 things at the back end are probably, more sophisticated than what a lot of people are used to. They used to fill in the form, get the lead form by email, pick up the phone and go from there. But actually connecting up some of that technology, Zapier, for people that don't know, is a connector. It enables you to channel information from one place to another without them having to be developed together, if you like. And then Unbounce is a landing page software where you can actually do some really awesome tests and A/B testing and different things. So yeah, those combined work really well. So then how, when you say you can then track them from there, where do you then go? You've got the emails in the spreadsheet. What's your next move from there?
So it depends on what I can and can't do. So like I said, I have a lot of lawyers. So in the U.S., there are very stringent laws about what I can and can't track. Like I really can't listen to sales calls, or I guess they would call them consults or something like that. But what I would do is, if I was doing e-com, I would just have the email against whatever system it is that they're using for purchases. So you can use I'll just tell you how I do it with mine. I have FreshBooks is how I bill my clients. Mm-hmm. And I've known how I've acquired all my clients because I track where they came in from and essentially how much it cost me. And then it's just a big sheet. Another system I use is a Tiller, which pulls in bank account information. We obviously have a corporate account. And it pulls in bank account information, and it'll match that to the actual person who purchased, because it's a unique identifier. And again, that just goes into Google Sheets. I'm a big fan of using the simplest methodologies, the simplest tools, really, to achieve the biggest outcomes. I know there are people use Salesforce or whatever. Yeah. For me, it's about picking what I'm best at and doubling down, reinforcing what works.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the biggest hang-ups that people have, especially on the lead gen side, is not really understanding what the lifetime value of a customer is. The next step is really then putting your money down and sort of saying, right, I'm willing to spend, just for example, $2,000 to acquire a customer, because actually when we get one on board, it's worth $50,000 a year. That's quite, that's quite a big leap for some to take, especially, especially smaller solicitors, accountants, those type of places. How do you build up that confidence to give them the ability to make that spend at the front end?
Well, I mean, I track everything, so it would be if they started getting it, they would know. I have a lot of social proof. I don't know if you ever read Cialdini's Principle of Influence, but because I write for so many people, people just assume I'm pretty good at this, which I am. But
Yeah.
people will also assume that, and they'll find usually people find me in Search Engine Journal or Wordstream or PPC Hero or whatever it may be, and then I talk to them about it, and I try to look at it also from a business perspective because this is something I always say is that the internet's not magic, right? So if I ask you for a consult, I've come to your ad and I say, hey, look, it looks like you have a cool agency. I'd like a consult. That doesn't mean I'm a customer. That's not even close to what that means.
Yeah.
That means that I've asked for a consult. So you also need to think about this from a business perspective. What's your follow-up? Do you call back? I like to have my clients call back 4 times before they consider it a dead lead. Is it something where there's a lot of email necessary? I mean, I've been seeing that less and less just because that's the nature of people getting blasted with emails all the time. One thing I've been trying to overcome that with is conversational bots. It's working really well for a real estate place I'm working with. So when they ask for more information, the bot's right there. It's kind of a quick way to do it. Sorry, that doesn't really answer your question. So to answer your question is, it really depends on what they do for follow-up. So if they're a brand new business and they have no sort of sales organization, then we're going to be starting small. We have to start small. I like to make quarterly goals. So if they've never done anything, then their first goals might be to build the email list. And there's nothing wrong with that. And building an email list is generally pretty cheap. But then you have to see what they can do with that email list. And I don't do email marketing, so you can kind of show them some clients who've done good or bad. But if they're going to just think these leads are magically going to turn to sales, I mean, that's just not a realistic expectation.
That's one of the biggest things that I come across quite a lot, actually, is that clients new to this will come in and think, just put some ads up, leads come in, where our sales, and totally overlook the back end follow up and actually how good their back end follow up is. Even if they do have one, that is usually quite a weak point, especially with new businesses. That traditional follow up, and like you rightly say, email now. People are so inundated with it that actually at a B2B level, once someone's made initial contact, picking up the phone is probably, maybe not for every business sector, but for many, picking up the phone is probably the way to go.
Yeah, and it's same as anything else. Just because they join their email list doesn't mean they're a customer. But just because they didn't buy on the first email offer you had doesn't mean they're not a customer. It's the internet is like a cooler version of the real world. I think that you would never ask just a random stranger to buy your stuff. That would never happen in a million years. First, you would talk to them, and then you'd see what their issues are. I mean, I even see it. I took a bunch of sales training. One of the things they say is you need to really understand someone before you make an offer. And I get that. If it's if I just went to a doctor and he's like, you have a broken leg, without asking me any questions, I'd be like, what? Don't you want to know what part of me hurts or take an x-ray? So I think a lot of this is just people thinking the internet just does magical things. And it does to an extent where once you get it, you can scale. Like I was talking about that cell phone company. But at the same time, it's you have to really think through what it is and test and realize that it's hard. There's no way around it. Sales is always going to be a little bit hard. And you know what? It's always going to be a little bit awkward too. I know because I have all these doctors, they would talk to people as if they were also doctors at a medical conference. And that's just not really a way to make sales. And when it comes down to it, I hate to say it because maybe it's just an American thing, but you have to sell it. You have to sell. They do hormonal therapy. The lawyers, they have to sell them things. And the way to sell it isn't to be like, well, I went to Yale. The way to sell it is, hey, how can I help you? Let's understand this. And then talk about the things you can do to really make it work.
Yeah. And as that is so right for offline, there is no reason why that isn't the same case online, is really understanding the pain points. And some of your articles understand the pain points because they, the few I've read have focused on those pain points and are alleviating them. So you can actually do more or less the same thing and use the content or information to actually aid the audience. Because you're so heavily focused on ROI, it's what you lead on your website. You even give a guarantee against it. How do you then cover the whole spectrum of the marketing cycle? Because it's one thing measuring a click through to a sale. There's your ROI. For every $1 spent, I get $10 back. Brilliant. But at some point you need to reach out there and go a bit wider. Dare I say, create awareness campaigns, branding campaigns, and of course those sink heavily into the ROI, especially initially when you first start out on those. How do you factor those in?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify one thing. We don't guarantee ROI. We guarantee satisfaction.
Sorry, yes, of course.
It's a difference. So, someone can get you a nice ROI, but if they suck to work with and they're always late, it's stupid. So one thing I realized, because I've been doing this, is that really lowers the bar, and it makes it really easy for me to work with people I want to work with. It's not, it's not hard to get a client. So, we guarantee satisfaction. But, there are things like branding campaigns that you may need to do. So one thing that is really important, and I'm going to put an article about it up at some point. I had one on Kiss Metrics, but they took down articles from 3 years ago, is to think about it from a cycle, right? So if someone doesn't really know you, asking for something like their time for a demo is way too big an ask. That's way too big an ask. Don't even do it. You're just going to be throwing your money down a tube. I would say think about it from kind of a 3-step cycle. Or I guess that's probably the traditional model. But when they don't really know you, the best thing you could do is give them something of value and show that you're an expert. Give them an ebook. Although lately I've been seeing ebooks are less and less interesting, and people have been enjoying more and more interactive. They're called lead magnets. So I'll give you an example. As an example, instead of trying to think what the last one we did was. Okay, I remember the last one. So the last one we did was, instead of an ebook that said 10 signs of hormonal imbalance, we did a quiz that was could you be suffering from a hormonal imbalance? And that's much more interesting to the user, and it doesn't cross any ethical lines because, could you be? And the answer is yeah, you could be, or maybe you're not. And the doctor really wrote it, but it makes a difference. People want something that's tailored to them, and that's something that you can do on the internet at scale as well. So by getting those leads, you then follow up with them. The next step would be to ask for possibly a demo. And even then, you might want to hit them twice with something valuable. It's very, and I'm just speaking from experience, it's really hard to get someone to go to a doctor. I have a bunch of dentists. These aren't particularly fun things that people are yeah, dental implants. I'm so into that. So even if they say they're going to come in, you got to follow up and take away any points of friction that you can. You might have your receptionist call in and say, hey, look, do you need any help with transportation? This is where the parking is. Just make it not very scary. Another tip I have is you can kind of, I'll call it jump the cycle. And this is actually going to be an article for Search Engine Journal. It's going to be coming out in about a month, but you guys got the exclusive on it. But you can jump the cycle by, say, offering an ebook on your page, and then when they click and go through on the thank you page, offer your core offer of a consultation or a demo or whatever it is. And there's something called compliance psychology, which again comes from that Cialdini book, where if someone takes a small step, they're more likely to take a bigger one. And it works. It works amazing. I was shocked at how well that worked.
I've seen that in use quite a lot, where actually sometimes it can feel more obvious to have the form on the landing page, but actually in some circumstances you can get more form fills by having the button that launches the form, but because the button has already got them to take a positive action.
Yeah, if you just one of the people I really like for this guy John Dane at a Client Boost, who does I took his AdWords course, and he he talks about compliance psychology as well, with having the least threatening question first, because if you just have name and email, you just have the most threatening questions first. So that's, people are like, that's, yeah, exactly. That was how I said it. I said, start testing it. Totally worked, totally made sense. Because I'd always been taught traditionally that you want to have as few few fields as possible. But when I tested it, it worked really really well. I use it for a long-distance medical transportation company. I've used it for lawyers. And you just ask kind of like something non-threatening. For the medical transportation company, it was just what city are you starting your journey in? Phrased a little better, but that's the gist of it. And by doing that, we've really raised their conversions as well. So there are lots of little ways to think about moving someone along the cycle. But again, it's all about using that data. So when we found, if we found a lot of people were filling out these forms, but they were just crap leads, like as an example, medical transport company needs a minimum distance of 300 miles. So it's like a pretty long haul there. Yeah. So we ask them these kind of questions, which is where I came up with what city are you from, what city are you going to. But yeah, that's something that putting it on the thank you page works really well for a core offer. And you can phrase it the way I typically phrase it is whatever they say they download an ebook. Your ebook is in the is going to be in your email. Tell I've been on LinkedIn a lot today. Your ebook will be in your email in 5 minutes. In the meantime, watch this video too, and then whatever it relates to. So say they just downloaded whatever, like a tip guide. In the meantime, watch this video to learn how to do your ads better. And then you can put a nice video sales letter. Always make sure that you subtitle it or caption it, you might call it, because many people are watching on their mobile phone with the sound off. And then under that, just say, hey, do you want to get a consult? Video works really well for making people feel like they know you. Okay.
So, I mean, it sounds like, do you help people build the complete funnel? Because that, coming in, just doing the PPC, and then you say, oh, by the way, go off and you need to get a video and 3-step forms and stuff like that. Do you help them put that all together? Or how do you go about that? Because it's more of a strategic view than the tactical, just lead generation.
Yeah. So the way I look at our company is we really only succeed when our customers do, and I don't mean that like as a Michael Scott like office mug thing. I mean that from a real practical like making money thing. So in agency world, if you have a lot of churn, it sucks. Yeah. You spend the vast majority of your money building out the campaigns initially. It is a hassle. Everyone's all grumpy all the time. Like it's the hardest part. And then once you get someone up and running and they see the leads coming in and they're closing them, it's not so hard. You're just optimizing a couple times, usually a week. And then with Facebook, you always have to do new audiences. But yeah, we help them through the whole cycle. I mean, I've hopped on sales calls and pretended to be like they knew it, but I would pretend to be a lead so that we could talk through how to overcome objections and how to do a proper sales call, because a lot of them don't know how to do it. And you really add a lot of value as an agency if you can help people overcome that stuff.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Taking a step back into specifically into things like Google Ads itself. I mean, a couple of things. I mean, Google is really chomping at the bit with machine learning, and I'm going to use the word machine learning rather than AI because that's really what it is at the moment. A lot of what they're doing. Do you leverage a lot of their smart ad deployment, their responsive ads and things like that within the campaigns that you run?
For the display network, so there's two kinds of networks. There's a search network and there's a display network. For search network, not so much. We actually usually keep it. Well, we do the bidding is a lot of the AI machine learning stuff. For the ads, we actually usually keep it on. I forget what they call it, like split it 50-50. Oh, okay. And then we just look at the stats because we do cross ad set testing usually. But for display network, we definitely do. There's something called in-market audiences, which, as an example for the real estate one, or you can find people who have, based on their past search history, been looking for a house. And Facebook makes housing or real estate very unpleasant, we'll call it. Like they take away certain not qualifications, certain things you can use to target someone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now, this is Fair Housing Act, which is, of course, I'm fine with. But they've kind of gone over where they need to be because, they did, basically put Donald Trump in office. So they were like, whoa, we're gonna scale way back on this. So they have, and Google is not under all those pressures. So you can do in-market audiences, and then you can cross-reference with other things that are actually ethical. And I think their display network's great. I used to hate it. It's kind of like a race car. Like if you don't really know what you're doing, you're gonna crash like right into a wall. Really,
yep.
You have like a million clicks from like Pakistan. What? How did this happen? But if you use in-market, it works well. And again, it's about matching the offer. So unless you're remarketing, which means someone came to your site and left and you're having the ad follow them around, I wouldn't offer a demo or a sales call on Display Network. It's just not the right audience with the right offer. It's you want to have something like an ebook or a video works fine. A quiz, sometimes AdWords or Google Ads, I guess they call themselves now, is a little wonky with quizzes because there's not a lot of content on the page, and they're very much about content on a page. So sometimes they'll let it run, sometimes they won't. But overall, it's really the AI works to a huge extent if you have the right offer. So like, it's again, the internet not being magic. Like you can say, Google, use your AI, but if your offer makes no sense, it's just not going to do anything. You're going to burn through a lot of money and no result.
Well, I think you'll be pleased to know as well, they're bringing affinity audiences, in-market audiences to search. Just an article I saw today on Wordstream. That's going to be pretty cool, being able to layer search ads over people that an audience that are already in market looking for your stuff.
Yeah, I enjoy search. I think it's probably what I'm best at. It's kind of what I came up on. And it makes the most sense for lawyers because no one's like, hey, Facebook about to go get a DUI. Like, it just never happened in a million years. But it does happen for lawyers, and it's really cutthroat in the U.S. or what do you call them here? Solicitors, barristers?
Yeah, solicitors. Yeah, yeah. Although we nick the lawyer word quite a bit as well. So, yeah, not too fussed. Everyone knows too much US TV, or not too much, but a lot of US TV over here anyway. So we got all the terminology.
Yes, so it's like, but the cost per click on lawyers is very expensive in the US.
Oh,
like
yeah.
50 or 60 a click. So I like how cutthroat that is. And if you can really segment your data, which is a really big thing that I see, is a lot of advertisers, when I come in, they have kind of like one big campaign with like one ad group with like one keyword. And you're like, well, your keywords and your search queries are different things. So as an example, someone might have a keyword which says divorce lawyer, but the actual search term might be cool shows about lawyers.
Yes.
So one thing that, and I hope your audience thinks about this, is to always look at your search query report. I think they might change it to search term report. Well, whatever it is, the one that shows you the search queries. And then what I do is called the peel and stick method, something I learned from Perry Marshall, where you take a search term, and let's say divorce lawyers, you're out of Norwich, right? So maybe divorce lawyers in Norwich. That's going to get its own ad group. It's going to get its own ads that say divorce lawyers in Norwich in the headline and the display URL. And that's also going to get its own landing page, which would say divorce lawyers in Norwich. And you don't have to make a million of these. There are kind of like tricks around it. Something called dynamic keyword insertion, which works in Unbounce and in AdWords. But if there's one thing that I always want people to walk away from, because people be like, I tried AdWords, didn't work. And then I look at their account, and their ads don't match up with their keywords, and their ads don't match up with their search queries, I guess I would say. So yeah, I mean, that's something that is really important.
Yeah, well, one of the problems we tend to have in the UK a lot is the dispersed audience. So you have a lot of big cities in the US which give you large audiences in a compact area, and of course we don't have so much. And And that means going for those smaller audiences in the UK, those targets in the UK can actually lead to quite small audiences. It's still valid, but you don't get such the volume coming through. How much emphasis do you still lay on ad copy? I mean, you mentioned Perry Marshall there. I mean, one of his big stalwarts was really, ad copy is the key to a lot of this. Do you still play about with ad copy a lot?
I mean, it's important in the same way that everything's important. But it's much more for me about matching the offer, because again, you could have the world's best ad copy, but if your offer doesn't make sense to your audience, they're not even interested. For AdWords or Google Ads, I always do that, but they were AdWords forever.
Yeah.
Really matching is the biggest thing. So matching the search query, and then you just kind of put the offer. We usually play around with the middle two lines, so kind of the description lines. So you might try a different benefit, a different feature. I have found that concrete testimonials or concrete bona fides do make a difference. So if my ad said, "Hey, I'm the best plumber in the world," okay, cool. But if I have a different ad that said, "We have a 5-star rating and we're in," oh, you guys don't have Better Business Bureau here. What do you call it? Which? We got
we got
a 5-star rating on which. So yeah, I mean, if you can actually put real concrete things that aren't just like, "Hey, we're the best," we've won, or for personal injury lawyers, we might say we've won over $3,702 for our clients. Or if you're, again, a plumber, just because I have one of those, we might say 97% of our customers are satisfied. We have an on-time arrival rate of 100%. Whatever it is, those kind of things do make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to that search term, as you rightly said, used to be called search query report. I mean, that is probably one of the most misunderstood, or certainly from my experience, a very misunderstood area is the actual keywords themselves, and technically how they work in terms of ad placement and what they pull through. I mean, in some cases, can't you? You can have an ad group with 4 or 5 tightly matched keywords in it, but it can actually then match up against hundreds, if not thousands of actual search terms, just in the way that you compile them together, and diligently sifting through those can mean the difference between a high return campaign and not, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do it at least weekly, for the bigger accounts bi-weekly. And it's just a matter of, if it's a keyword if it's a search query that sucks, we put in negative. Yep. So again, if it were lawyers, believe me, we wouldn't have this at this point. But anything that's free, cheap, anything like that, that's just no one's going to want to show for that. So again, you can usually see who actually isn't paying attention to this if you type in like free lawyers around you. And then, from an agency standpoint, that's a really good person to go after. Say, "Oh, well, I don't know who's running your ads, but you're wasting, $50 or $60 on cheap lawyers." And then if it's good, we put in a single keyword ad group. Again, something I learned from that guy, John Dane, but he got it from Peel and Stick from Perry Marshall. It all kind of builds upon each other with granularity. And it's the same with, honestly, it's the same with Facebook. So we look at it based on, we try to limit the number of variables as best we can.
Okay.
So obviously sometimes you can't. But if you just have, say, an audience with one variable, Ad Espresso does a pretty good job of this. Again, just a platform I use sometimes.
Yep.
But they'll break it out by a single variable or single, I don't know what you'd call it, and then you can see which ones are working the best for you and then create lookalike audiences based on that. Or you can exclude them if they're not working. And sometimes you'll be surprised at what just doesn't work. But
so when you say one variable, do you mean like you might just start with an age and gender and a single interest? Or is that what you mean by variable?
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
So we try to not start with an interest. The way we do our audiences, or we try to find, what we prefer to start with are hot audiences. So anyone who's been to your website,
Yeah.
that's just going to be a much better audience. And then we do lookalikes based on those hot audiences. And by the time we get to cold audiences, we've usually created new lookalike audiences at I think it's 1, 3, and 5%. But if it's a brand new company, yeah, we typically, if we can, we'll do it based on one interest or one target. Sometimes you can't. So like that's another thing that I think people come in and they're like, oh, I want to target people who like, I don't know, so some very small company like pizza place down the street. I mean, that's just Facebook's not going to let you do that. You need to target pretty good sized audiences. Like they don't have to be Coca-Cola, but they have to be pretty good sized.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that lends itself to going right back to what you said about having the right offer. I mean, if you've got that offer and you put it in front of, especially on Facebook, in front of a large enough audience, you'd like to think that the only people that react to that will be those interested in that offer. Therefore, why do you try to pre-think that a certain interest may or may not be interested in that offer, unless it's something like you're selling meat? You probably don't want selling, burgers or something. You probably don't want to put that in front of vegans or vegetarians, which would be an obvious one to avoid. But other than that, other than those obvious ones, actually you can let your ad do the talking, can't you?
Yeah, and so this is just from an agency perspective. Sometimes your clients, I'm not going to say they don't care about ROI, but you made me think about this. I had a really big restaurant chain out of New York, and I was like, guys, I don't know how we're going to track people who've seen your ad and then book a lunch was what they wanted. And they're like, we don't care. We just want people to see it. Yeah. And I actually learned way, way, way back in the day when I started this agency to back off sometimes. I had one of my first big clients. We actually really got into it because he wanted to always show for his competitor and always show above the competitor. And if you are bidding on a competitor's term, it's going to be very expensive because it's just not a good quality for the user. So it was like triple the amount. And of course, no one's going to convert on it because they're not looking for you. And we really got into it, and I lost him as a client. And since then, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give people my opinion. And if they don't want to listen to it, that's fine. I can't pay the rent in South Kensington based on opinions. So, there are cases where, maybe you have a client who sells burgers and you say, look, it's really hard to track. I don't think people are going to download a coupon on Facebook, which is how they tell you to track it. Well, I was doing it on AdWords, which is even crazier. But I was like, I just don't see, Midtown New Yorkers. It was a very expensive restaurant. Download a coupon for a very expensive restaurant. Like, we don't care. We just want to show. And that's just life sometimes. Sometimes your clients are, if you caught me with a bunch of beers, sometimes I would say sometimes clients are just clients. Sometimes they're awesome. I mean, I've learned, I'm definitely not always right either. And I've learned probably more from them than they learned from me.
Yeah, and the data isn't always definitive, is it? It's lovely to be able to run tests and see a winner from an ad, but sometimes it is just fuzzy, and there isn't a lovely call to action you can have. There isn't a neat little download you can give them to bring in store. There isn't a nice way to measure all those phone calls and know exactly where they're coming from. It just has to be fuzzy. Do you ever take the stance that actually we need to do a lot of this stuff across many platforms, and actually what we measure at the end of the day, is there an overall uplift?
Not really. I try to make it one-to-one and do performance marketing. Okay. Like there are times where, like I said, I work with some of the bigger ones, and it just comes down from high, and there's not too much I can do about it.
Right.
But if I can, I try to do one-to-one, because if you can show that you're making someone money, then they're probably not going anywhere.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and yes, why I like PPC so much, far more way and above things like SEO and those sort of things that are you have to be a bit more of a believer in.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially nowadays with Facebook and Google and everyone pushing you towards paid. At least when you spend £1, you can see whether you get a return or not to some extent or other. And a client getting a return is likely to hang around.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then it's also instant, right? So like if I was selling you SEO, I'd say, all right, you're going to pay me now, and then 4 months from now, you're going to rank really highly.
Yeah.
Like I got into this and I was in paid search from the get-go. But this agency, the first one I was at in San Diego, they did all sorts of stuff. And I mean, you just couldn't beat it. Like you in the control you have of what page are you going to send them to and what ad copy you're going to use and how quickly can you test. And just for me, we do paid ads ourselves. Like it just, for me, it's been the most unbeatable way to grow business quickly. And it's not all we do, right? Like I write a lot, and that does make a difference. It's a difference I can't measure, but I do it enough to know that it makes sales 1,000 times easier. When, if someone has a question, you can say, oh yeah, well, check out this article on whatever, duct tape marketing or whatever it is, because it's someone standing in for you. But that initial lead, I mean, they would never found me anyway. I don't have the staff to write 15 articles a day like some people do. And even if I did, I wouldn't put them on that. I'd be having them take phone calls from paid search ads.
Exactly the reason we do this podcast and have done this podcast for many years is it's that lovely non-threatening interaction that someone can have with you. You don't even know they're having an interaction with you. And we can build authority and a relationship in that way without even know you're doing it. And then when the crunch comes and they need someone, it makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I agree. Those other things do come in, but paid is a lovely route to find out. I mean, it's lovely to test a new market as well. If you have a new idea for a product service, chuck up an unbounce page, small little campaign, throw some traffic at it, and see what the world thinks.
Yeah, exactly. And we do that. We test. We don't test new offers all that much, but we test new markets all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I got into lawyers. I think I own like divorce marketing, expert, something like that. I own one of those. And then I'll run Facebook ads. And I'll do the exact same campaign for real estate, exact campaign for hormonal therapy experts. And the only variable is basically the sales video. And then, yeah, it's something that you can scale quite a bit. And for me, it's been a big difference that not to get too personal, but I can live wherever. So,
yes. Yeah, of course.
We've been here for a year and a half. I love England. We're one of my favorite countries for sure. But we're going to be moving to Amsterdam in January-ish, because we can do it anywhere, and all countries seem to want tech people. So it's great.
Yeah, it does. It does give you that lifestyle as well. Our agency is, although we have a head office in Norwich, a lot of the time the guys are working from home because they can. Don't have to be travelling into the office, which is awesome. So, I mean, there's a lot we've gone into there, and we've gone all over the place as well. If anyone's got any further questions or anything else at all, where should they get in touch with you and find you and ask you those things?
Sure. So you can go to nerdsdoitbetter.com. We have a chatbot up. We just started that maybe a week or two ago, giving that a shot and seeing how it works on the front homepage. You can also always contact me on LinkedIn. We're going to be kind of all over. We have a whole bunch of podcasts, including this one, coming out. A whole bunch of articles coming out. For a little bit, I took time off of writing because the agency grew so fast, but I've been working on systems like a madman. I read this book, E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Oh, yep.
It really helped me kind of sort through it. So, yeah, I mean, feel free to reach out and, even if you just want to say hi, that's fine with me too, because you never know where that goes. I mean, I'm always happy to chat.
Brilliant. And we'll put some links to some of those resources that you mentioned, the Moneyball book and the Client Boost, and what was the other one? The Influence. Was it the Gerber one?
Cialdini Principle of Influence.
Yeah, the principle of influence. So we'll put the links to those, and of course to your website in the show notes, so everyone can get those. So thank you ever so much, Adam, for coming on. It was absolutely brilliant. I could have just chatted with you for hours, but we need to get on, and we don't want to bore the audience either. So thank you ever so much. Thank you guys for listening. Really great. I hope you enjoyed that. Some awesome tips and little nuggets in there that should be really, really useful for some of your campaigns. If you've got any questions for us, then find us on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Sean Clark, which is nice and easy. And if you enjoyed the show, we live on reviews. So iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen, download. If you could just nip across and click on the button, the higher the number, the better. And if you've got time to add a little review as well as click on the stars, that would be awesome. Just one more thing, as regular listeners will know, but others might not. I'm doing a mad dash across the desert in April, running the Marathon des Sables. So 6 days, 5 marathons, carrying all gear apart from the tent that they supply, but all food, all your cooking gear, water, everything. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but obviously I'm in training right now. You can follow some of the team that are taking part. There's 34 of us that are part of the Walking with Wounded team. We're raising money for ex-military personnel who find it hard to get back into work after leaving the services, either through injury, mental illness, or just don't get on so well in civvy life. So we're raising money for those. You can find more information about that on the mdspodcast.com. You'll find links to donate or just share away if you don't have any money to spare, and you can follow my training links on there as well. So nip over to the MDS podcast if you're interested in running or adventure sports or anything like that. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening, and thank you again, Adam, for coming on the show. Cheers.
You have been listening to the Click and Convert podcast. Don't miss a show. Subscribe for free on iTunes at clickandconvert.co/iTunes.
We'd like to thank our show sponsor, Optio. Optio is a Google Ads management tool and much more. If you run one Google Ads account or 100, Optio will save you time and enhance your ad management skills. Smart, powerful, and built to make life easier. It will automate routine Google Ads tasks and alert you automatically to trends and even make automatic recommendations. You can then spend more time on high-level strategy and creative work. We use Optio in our agency to make us more efficient and effective. Go to optio.com/click and convert to claim your 6-week free trial. That's optio.com/click and convert to claim your 6-week free trial.